The middle of the 21st century essentially marked the rise of live-action video games adaptation, something that up until that point was considered a box office poison, and for a good reason.
That's supposed to
But back in the early 2000s, the trend was in reverse, and games that had been adapted from a movie became quite common.
But just for games that had been based on movies are something that existed long before the early 2000s. And in fact, many are still coming out.
No. What you're talking about are games that are taking place in the same universe, but not telling the same story. What I'm talking about are games that allow players to experience the events of the movie firsthand. And while creative freedom had been employed in these adaptations, ranging from closely following the movie's plot to presenting a significantly altered chains of events, most of those games still adhere to the same general storyline as their film counterpart. But the bottom line is, if a movie has achieved a blockbuster status, a game adaptation would often follow.
And of course, that will include The Lord of the Rings.
Many Lord of the Rings games came out at the time, and while Lord of the Rings titles are still coming out, the franchise truly experienced its golden era back then, and to this day, Return of the King is in my opinion one of the best Lord of the Rings games that ever came out.
The game lets you play through the events of the movies, starting from the end of the Two Towers, and taking the player all the way to the end of Return of the King.
To be specific, the game starts at the Battle of Helm's Deep and is completed with the destruction of the ring in Mount Doom.
And that leads us to the way the game is structured.
The levels are divided into 3 different branches: the Path of the Wizard, the Path of the Hobbit, and the Path of the King.
Each level will have in the beginning a short cutscene consisting of spliced moments from the movies, accompanied by narration from Gandalf, serving as a quick summary of the events that led to that mission and explains the purpose of it.
That was a common practice with those types of games. But what's special here is the editing. It delivers the same sense of drama and epicness the Lord of the Rings is known for, and having Gandalf's narrating those cutscenes just makes it even better.
look to my coming at first light on the 5th day. At dawn, look to the east. For a wizard is never late, nor is he early. Gandalf. He arrives precisely when he needs to.
Another thing that stands out is the way the cutscenes are transitioned seamlessly into the gameplay graphics. And while it's not all that technically impressive, this is a creative decision I had not seen much of in other games. Not only that it helps smoothing the transition between cutscene to gameplay, but it also serves in hyping the player up. The moment the transition is happening, you better get ready. With that said, there is one issue I do have with the cutscenes. The narration from Gandalf gives off the impression that all the events that are taking place are some part of an elaborate plan to stop Sauron, which is clearly not the case. I mean, for the most part, our heroes mainly reacting to Sauron's moves.
And on the topic of heroes, the game gives you a chance to play different characters, depending on the path you choose.
If you take the path of the wizard, surprise surprise, you will play as Gandalf.
I failed to see where's the surprise here. Seems to me like it would be fairly obvious.
Yes, Lava, I am aware. Anyway, the Path of the Hobbit allows you to play as Sam for the majority of the missions and as Frodo in the fight with Gollum at the final mission of the entire game.
And the Path of the King allows you to choose between Legolas, Gimli, or Aragorn.
And while the game does limit your choices in the first run, once you complete the game, you can go back to each level you like and play with each character you like. So if you wanted to see Aragorn fighting to defend the walls of Minas Tirith, you can do that.
In addition, the game contains several bonus characters that will be unlocked as soon as the game is completed.
The game will also have a few bonus levels unlocked that serve more as a horde mode, allowing you to fight endless waves of enemies. kind of like the Bloody Palace in Devil May Cry. Remember when bonus content was something you had to unlock through achievement and not by using your wallet? Good times.
The game also has a progression system that allows you to get points depending on your performance, which you then can use to buy combos that will help you get better in combat.
All of that, of course, means nothing if the game itself sucks. Fortunately though, this case is the opposite. The fighting in this game can get pretty intense, and slashing your way through hordes of orcs can sometimes almost feel like you're actually there doing the fighting.
Also, every level is accompanied by the background soundtrack from the movies.
And I don't think I need to tell you why this is a good thing. Well, what else can I say? The game is perfect.
Jasper, that cannot possibly be true. After all, no game is flawless.
Well, that one is an exception.
If this is the case, why have you, and I quote, rage quitted during your last gaming session?
Fine. Well, Lava is right. The game does have its flaws. The game does try to offer some replayability by allowing you to go back and play previous missions with the characters of your choice once you have completed a game. However, the game's primary focus is to make sure each level captures the same sense of epicness from the movies, rather than catering to personal playstyles. And don't get me wrong, it does an amazing job with what it set out to do, but levels don't change with the character. Because of that, regardless of which character you're playing with, the game will still play out in mostly the same way.
But Jasper, won't the ability to play with friends provide an additional reason to play the game?
Yep, the co-op mode is certainly one thing that will give the game some replayability, so if you're into couch gaming, you may want to invite your friends over and go on an adventure together. But what I found to be the most frustrating thing is the targeting system. You see, the game do have range attacks, but the targeting in this game is very spotty. There had been several occasions where my intended target had been right in front of me, and I ended up shooting at someone on the other side of the map.
With a target that big, we can't miss.
You missed! How could you miss? He was 3 feet in front of you!
In addition, due to the large number of enemies, there is a high likelihood your attack will be interrupted.
This is a problem in itself, but it also makes the targeting issue even worse.
It's important to note that the problem may have been amplified by the use of a controller.
Well, that's a fair point. I am using the PS2 version of the game, and because I'm bound to the controller, that could have made the situation worse. Speaking of differences between platforms, as you can imagine, there are some things that just look better on the PC. For example, the hordes of orcs in the background are a lot more detailed on the PC than they are on the PS2. So, for conclusion, the game has some flaws and some of them can be frustrating, but nothing that I would call a deal breaker. Overall, the game does a lot more good than it does bad, and it is a lot of fun. So if you can get your hands on it, I would strongly recommend it.
But Jasper, according to my research, the game is not available for sale by any official means.
Yeah, this is a point we should talk about. So, if to give you the short version, the copyrights for Lord of the Rings are a bit of a mess right now. And back then, Electronic Arts was the studio license to produce and distribute those games. But since then, their license had expired. So right now, no one can really sell this game, even if they want to. Maybe you can find the game on the second-hand market, but in my opinion, until the copyright thing will be sorted out, if it ever will that is, there is really one reliable way I can think of to get your hands on the game, if you know what I mean. And sadly, this is all the excitement I can enjoy for today.
If you liked our video, please share your opinion with us in the comment section.
And of course, don't forget to like and subscribe for more biting reviews.
Biting? But Jasper, reviews should not bite.